Today we're going to square some binomials to create perfect square trinomials, and then we'll factor some perfect square trinomials to give us squared binomials. This is going to lead us into the subject of solving a quadratic equation by completing a square. It will be much easier. What you need to pay attention to are the patterns that occur when you multiply two binomials that are the same. All right, here we have four binomials. So we're going to square it, which means you're going to multiply it by itself. Now, if you do the box method, I don't mind if you use the box method either. It doesn't matter to me. So first is x times x is x squared. Then outer plus 3x plus inner plus 3x plus last plus 9. And then you combine. Okay, I'd like you to take a little time on your own right now to stop the video and work out these three other binomials. It's important that you do it yourself so you get used to seeing what it is you get when you do these problems. So go ahead and stop your video and work out those three problems. Okay, we're going to hope that you got these four answers correct. X squared minus 8x plus 16. X squared plus 10x plus 25. X squared minus 14x plus 49. What's really important now is that you start to notice the pattern. You have a 5 here, positive 5, positive 10, positive 25. This is half as big as this, and that's this squared. Over here, half of negative 14 is negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49. Half of negative 8 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. These four trinomials are perfect squared trinomials. In other words, if you factor them, they factor back into binomials that have been squared. And that's the whole point. You must notice that this, half of this squared equals that. That's how you can look at a trinomial and say, oh yeah, it's a perfect square. You take half of the middle and you square it, and you should get the last term. Half of negative 14 is negative 7. Negative 7 squared is 49. Half of negative 8 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. It's really important that you recognize these as perfect square trinomials. So here we have four trinomials. Are they perfect square trinomials? For each one, to check if it's a perfect square trinomial, look at the middle term, divide it by 2, and square it. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. This is a perfect square. Half of negative 6 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. That's a perfect square. Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. That's a perfect square. Half of negative 20 is negative 10. Negative 10 squared is 100. So each one of these comes from a perfect square. Now here's the shortcut to factoring a perfect square. Once you recognize, now you know it came from something being squared. And so to get x squared, you square x. And then you just take half of that middle and you put it in here. So let me explain that again. You know it's a perfect square. So you just take that, you put it here, the x. Then you take half of the middle and put it there. So I would like you to do that on your own for a second. Write down like this. Since we've already determined these are perfect squares, we can go ahead and work with them. And see if you can fill in those parentheses with the factors. This one is x. Half of that is negative 3. That's easy. This again, perfect square. So x, half of that is positive 6. Let's take a look at this. Yes, that was a perfect square. So x, take half of that, minus 10. And if you don't believe me, work out the FOIL on each one. You're going to see those what the answers are. And that's what we're going to have to be able to do. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit extra in a second on how to create a perfect square trinomial. Okay, what we have here are 4 would-be trinomials that we're going to create perfect squares. So all you have to do, and what we're doing is called completing the square. We're going to complete the square. So we take half of that and we square it. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Half of that is -7. -7 is 49. Half of 3 is 1.5. 1.5 squared is 2.25. I'm pretty smart. I did it in my head. Half of 18 is 9. 9 squared is 81. Okay, what did we do? We completed the squares. Now, once you complete a square, you can go ahead and factor it. X plus 2 squared, because it's half of that. X, take half of that, minus 7 squared. This one would be X plus 1.5 squared. And that would be X plus 9 squared. So what you're going to have to be able to do is take incomplete trinomials and complete their squares so that you can write out these binomial squares like that. That's how we're going to be able to solve some quadratic equations in a slightly easier, well, a lot easier way than using the quadratic formula sometimes. The only times it would be difficult are ones like this that are decimals. But those we might just go straight to the quadratic formula if we ever have that case. But we're going to find a way that doing this process of completing the square as being a much easier way to solve quadratic equations.